across the country was, again, this is an immune system issue. It's not so much a public health issue as it's a private health issue. In other words, people take responsibility for yourself, and that doesn't mean locking yourself up in a room. I read the other day, the average weight
Check.
gain, was like half a pound every 10 days.
Check.
During COVID.
Yeah, they said
It's
the
still
average,
working.
like 42% of
Welcome
people
back.
gained weight, and the average weight
It's been more than a week
for millennials was 39
since the last video because I had
which is
I'm not sure.
fucking insane.
a lot of
So,
work
Let's find that
and couldn't even get to it. Went to Miami.
I don't
Came
yeah,
back.
I'm not believing that. But even if it's 20 pounds, it's
But yeah, I got lots of
Well, I think what they're saying
cool
is
things.
42% that did
watching Joe Rogan
It's not that everyone gained weight,
as
most people gained weight, but the 42% that
our
gained
background
weight,
music.
weight gain was more than 30 pounds, which is a lot. That's a big.
Alright, what's this?
in your body.
Potentiometers.
Also,
These are the back
massive
of
negative
potentiometers
health impact for years to come. When you
that I'll
put
be
that
using.
kind
I
of
need
burden
4 of them.
on all of your systems, your endocrine
Basically,
system, all
each
of
one
your
would
body
control
systems.
a separate
So
motor, and the 4th one would control all 3 of them.
3,000 people.
So
It's gonna be my mini
that's why
kind of joystick remote control thing. And
Yeah, okay, here it is. 42% of adults said they gained more weight than intended. Of course, the amount
the
of
idea
weight
is
averaged
to
29 pounds. 10% said they gained more than 50 pounds.
the
Just that
idea is to
alone.
connect
Weight gain leads to obesity.
to connect these 2 Arduinos
More
together,
women, 45%,
and
reported weight gain
in
than men,
case
39%,
Arduino
men reported a
with
higher average gain of 37 pounds.
basically inside the scalp.
Compared to the women's average of 22 pounds. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. Men, the average of man for
Which
37
I'm
pounds for a
not
man is
get
fucking
to
bonkers.
today,
That's so much weight.
but
It makes you obese
wow,
almost.
so much better.
Yeah, almost instantly. Yeah, and
I got new
you
plastic
can't-
as well.
This is the other thing that we have a real problem with in our culture today. You can't say you need to lose weight because even though it's true, we have this bizarre like participation trophy concept of how we
Look
treat
at this.
people when it comes to
That's bad.
real issues like being obese,
Here you
like
go.
being fat. It's fucking terrible for
It's
you.
from my
But to
previous
say that you're
print.
fat shaming,
With the previous
which
plastic,
is so
I had since
nonsensical,
bought
it's
new
just
one.
designed to protect lazy people, or excuse
And,
me, ignorant lazy people, inflicted people that are inflicted with weight loss. Maybe they're not
I printed
lazy.
this
maybe
cap.
they're mentally
So
fucked
tight.
up. Like maybe they've got
Printed this
issues
cap,
that they
which
can't
is a very
seem to
good
get
quality
together
actually
and discipline
compared to
themselves and
ours,
lose the weight,
compared
whether
to these
because of
guys.
their sugar levels or their addiction to food or whatever it is.
It's kind of a different
My
color
God,
even.
we're not
Even
helping
though both
anybody
of them are
by
white.
protecting their feelings and letting their body get destroyed. It's crazy.
There's
it's
still
crazy.
the elephant shoe issue.
Seeing
Elephant
obese
foot.
models, on the cover of magazine.
The curve models.
But,
this is shit.
I don't know,
You don't
it
even know what you're
just
saying.
feels
Yeah.
much
How
better.
dare you?
So I need
But I mean,
to,
it's just a curve model.
reprint
Again,
this
you're talking
guy.
about sending the wrong message.
Yes,
I'll
terrible
go
message.
put it into print.
And not only that, but here's where it gets even worse. When people do get healthy,
Well, let me
folks
show
get
you
mad at them. Like there's
where I'm
fans
printing
that are
from.
mad at Adele.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because Adele is really slim now, and she looks fucking great. Which, by the way, I have a theory. She's one of those women that got hit up by a male gold digger. Her ex-husband, she divorced him, and he got a shit ton of money. And I think, that's the best revenge. She just said, "All right, motherfucker, I'll show you what's up."
Yeah.
You were getting fat. Adele.
Alright, let me show you
Now hot Adele's here.
Yeah.
Did you
My
see pictures of her, Jamie? Pull a picture of her.
setup
Look at her map.
for 3D printing.
Map that she had.
So I have this baby called Creality, and I don't know how to put this guy like that. Would that work? Hopefully. Don't fall, motherfucker. Like that, maybe. So yeah, anyways, yeah, this is Creality. I already have. I'm printing on a piece of paper because I had once an issue with plastic not sticking in the very first prints, and that's very important for it to stick, otherwise your print will go to hell. So I'm printing this just a piece of paper, nothing crazy. And I bought this huge roll of plastic. It's gonna last me much longer. I had this one before, it was just a test roll that came with the printer. So now I'm printing the one. And yeah, it's a pretty good printer for its price. I cannot say anything bad about it actually for what I paid for, which is like $300 or so. You know, for $300 you get yourself a building machine. That's pretty awesome. So this guy is gonna print the new case for the last third motor that I have.
230 for a woman cannot be healthy.
I already have a cap for it that I showed you.
People keep trying to push, and it flies in the face of science. It flies in the face of all the medical literature. You can't say that. You can't say that you can be fat and also be
So
healthy. You can
hopefully,
be fat and not currently suffering from a heart attack.
Right.
You can be fat and be, but you are taxing
You can be
your
fat.
system in a damaging
Yes,
way.
I can.
And also, you're also shortening your lifespan. You're burning the candle at both ends for sure.
that's
To that
right.
end,
Third motor is gonna
I
sit.
So you gotta look.
I got a book.
2 meals a day?
Yeah.
What is the idea behind that? Why 2 meals a day?
Last
So
time
why
I
one?
did this thing,
I was gonna do one a day, and I thought nobody's gonna buy this fucking book if it's 1 meal a day. So
Isn't
I
that
started-
the warrior diet?
I started with 2. You know, I've gone through again all these iterations of trying to assist people
This
with
is
the
my
information that I've come across in my research.
power
on how they
distribution
can
board
achieve
that we did
metabolic
last
composition,
time.
have more energy, maintain or build muscle, improve their immune systems, have better sleep, be more productive, whatever it is. These are the things that these are what I'm trying to
I'm gonna connect to these 3
these
motors,
hidden genetic
and
switches that I'm trying to uncover for people. And in so doing, you could choose to do it or not. I'm not suggesting you have to do this to have a great life,
this
but
guy.
here are some of the ways that we do it. And it started with the primal blueprint, and then sort of morphed into, well, the primal blueprint works really well for a lot of people, and even worked well for me, but is there something else? Is there a new level I can get to? And that was the keto. So I wrote a book called The Keto Reset Diet since I was young. And I was in the keto for a while. But then I sort of said, well, ketosis is not a way to live your life. It's a tool, a strategy that you can use to build metabolic flexibility.
Some people do.
I need to also
way to live your life, though.
understand
Like,
how to.
Dom D'Agostino.
Yeah.
He does it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends who do
Compile
keto
all
the time.
the things
I'm not a
together
person who
into
says
one block.
that's the way. Keto's the
There's,
be all and the end all of how you should live your life. Because I'm more about
I have these
achieving
babies.
metabolic flexibility. And that's a
Which
term
are
that's
in
come
our
up in the last couple of years. I don't know if you've heard it, but it basically describes your body's ability to extract energy from whatever substrate is available at the time.
So
So
make it
it's
easier to
the
divide and balance
board.
back and forth with fat and carbohydrates, not require so much of a gap.
Bingo.
Because usually the gap is, what is it, like 2 weeks or something like that for you, if you're a
Those are
carbohydrate.
gyroscopes, I
And if
think.
if you never go down the route of keto, and all you do is eat carbs your whole life, or have a carb-centric diet, you never get to the point where you're burning fat efficiently or effectively.
Right.
So you're really
GPS.
metabolically inflexible. Your body's just demanding that it continuously run on carbs and never tap into your fat stores. So typically you get incrementally
I
fat.
have other radio transmitters,
and then
but
if
I'll
you
probably not
skip
go
a
use
meal,
them.
or skip 2 meals, or try to go on some sort of fast, the wheels
I'll
fall
use
off
these two
because
guys.
you haven't built the metabolic machinery to burn fat, burn
I don't need a
glucose,
gyro.
and all
Yep.
the things that go along with
I
metabolic
need
flexibility. So
it
it
soon.
turns out metabolic flexibility is the holy grail, and how you get there, whether it's primal, paleo,
Soldiering.
vegetarian, vegan, fasting, IF, whatever. It's almost like it doesn't matter what route you use. If you can get to the point where you're metabolically flexible, now you have this ability to extract energy from your own stored body fat whenever you don't eat.
And how does one do that? Like, what's the best strategy?
Well, the
to
best
use?
strategy is keto. So
That's the best strategy.
for sure. That's the best
And
strategy.
also I got
So,
a few.
because as long as you keep feeding your body carbohydrates every 2 or 3 hours all day long, the body goes,
New
"Hey, I got plenty of fuel."
things.
Taking the carbohydrates
This is a
in
soldering
raises my
paste.
blood sugar. Blood sugar is a fuel, but I
Also
don't
know
want
this
too much of it
flux.
in my system, and so the body produces insulin, which tries
helps.
to take excess glucose out of the bloodstream.
So your wire is better.
And in so doing, your blood sugar drops because it's
Basically,
and
it
then you have
makes
to eat
10
again every 2 or 3 hours. And it's this cycle that people
spread out more even.
that they're on for a
I
lifetime
guess.
sometimes. And
Might
the
wanna
tendency
check on
over
me on that.
time, because you're not burning
If
as much
anyone
body fat, is to
is
accumulate
gonna watch it
You never get really
ever.
yeah, at burning body fat, and because you never take time off
What's
to
this?
require that your body burns its fat. You just keep accumulating.
UFC 260
Oh, this is
is
the,
a can't-miss event. Every punch, kick, and knockout means so much more with a DraftKings lineup on the line.
Shut
DraftKings, the
fuck
official
up.
daily fantasy partner, is not at millions of dollars in total prizes throughout the.
No, I don't want to.
This episode is brought to you by Cat.
Alright. This
So how
episode
does someone
is
go
brought to you
from
by
being metabolically inflexible to metabolically
my own ability to
flexible
push
without
buttons
going
and
to
start live streaming.
That's difficult. The way to do it
That's
is
the only thing you need
fat.
to praise currently.
And it just keto is such a
Oh fuck,
better
so
way to
many
do it.
of
The
them.
reason
1,
is
2, 3.
you're trying to
got
prompt the body into making changes that
10
it
of
doesn't
them.
want to make. You
The
know,
reason
you're
that I
doing
got 10 of them
it,
is
you're
because there
prompting
was like the only
the body to
option for
build
the
muscle.
money. I paid like
It doesn't want to build,
$6
but now you're,
for it,
you know, you're giving it a reason to. And so when
and
you
I got 10 of
withhold
these.
carbohydrate from
Which
your
is
diet,
more than I need,
sugar,
of course.
but carbohydrate in general, and the body
But for the
senses that
future,
it's
I will
not
probably
glucose
maybe use them all.
it starts to go to
But-
plan B, which is to build the metabolic machinery, to start to extract energy from the stored fat cells, to burn that fat, to combust that fat into muscle cells.
I would like to sign these things so I don't have to
because the brain
guess
works really
next
well
time.
on
So I'll be
ketones.
back.
In fact, the brain works better on ketones than it does on glucose for most people. So, a built-in plan, this diagram, this genetic program that you're born with to be metabolically flexible, to be able to extract energy from fat and from ketones and from glucose, and it would normally go that route, but we never give it the reason to. Now, how is that plan? How has it evolved? Well, for most of human history, we ate and we didn't eat. It wasn't like, you know, breakfast was the most important meal of the day, or make sure you keep, you know, little Tupperware things of a little bit of protein and some carbohydrate to eat every 2 or 3 hours, or else your muscles go into cannibal mode. No, humans are wired to overeat, and because food was so scarce, when we did come across food, we tended to eat more, and certainly sweet foods like fruits was even more palatable, so we probably tended to eat more of that. But so we're wired to overeat, and we have this amazing design that allows us to take excess energy and convert it into fuel that we carry around with us all the time, conveniently located above the center of gravity. So it's on the hips, on the butt, on the thighs, on the belly. So we tend to carry this excess body fat as a survival mechanism from 1 million years ago.
That's why you carry it here?
Yeah, that's sure.
It's like a fanny pack.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So, but again, if you look at evolution and how things, you know, we're bipedal, we have to stand upright. So, you know, if we had fat accumulating on our upper back or whatever, we'd be, you know, tipping over. So it's conveniently located over the center. It's an elegant design. The problem is, it was designed so that when you didn't eat food, you could take that same fuel, take it out of storage, combust it, and not be any the worse for it. Not think of anything other than, you know, I'm still going to hunt, I'm still going to do all these things. I haven't eaten for 5 days. I'm not hangry. I'm not pissed off at my mate. I'm just going to keep going with a great attitude, and I'm going to find something to eat.
Now, what is the standard amount of time? Is there a standard amount of time between if a person eats a normal American diet and they just decide to fast? How long does it take for their body to convert to burning fat?
If they're not going keto,
Right.
yeah, they're probably going to burn. They're going to probably use a little bit of muscle in the process, because the body, if it isn't used to deriving muscle its energy from fat because of the
It's
process
called
it's engaged in to use keto
I2C bus.
you know,
That's how
to
it's
burn
called.
fat.
Integrated.
It'll still seek glucose, and if you don't give it glucose and you haven't done this work, the first couple of days it's miserable, and so people talk about the low carb
And
food,
it's bi-directional.
or if they go on a fasting thing at an ashram. I saw Elvis.
Which is what I need.
Yeah, but I saw Elvis.
Oh, you're saying
Because you're going crazy. So your brain is kind of frazzled because you haven't given it the opportunity to really thrive on ketones yet. Your body's making ketones, but you haven't built that metabolic machinery to use them efficiently and effectively. So the brain's still looking for glucose, and as a result, what happens is the brain will send a signal to the adrenals to secrete cortisol. Cortisol then goes
I
from
don't know
the
what to
body
start.
strips
So much shit
amino
around.
acids from
Oh my
muscle
God.
tissue to send them to the liver to become glucose.
Let's see.
So it's
Parameters.
counterproductive.
These boys.
So, one of the reasons why back in the old bodybuilding days, in the old training days in any gym, is this mantra about don't go more than three or 4 hours without eating, or you cannibalize your muscle tissue. If you haven't become fat adapted and keto adapted, that does happen. You do cannibalize muscle tissue when you go long periods of time without
So
eating.
But see, when I say standard American diet, food's normal. You eat a little bit of pasta, a little bit of bread, but you eat mostly healthy.
Yeah.
If you decide that you're going to fast, your body's going to cannibalize some muscle.
Not so much.
How much?
A few
Pounds.
pounds. Not even, a few pounds maybe.
let's
You
start
get
with
it
this
back.
board, I
You get it
guess.
back.
But the idea is that if you can weather that storm, how much time are you looking for before your body starts burning fat?
Some people a week, some people 2 weeks,
A
some people
week.
some people 3
You'll
weeks.
be dead. You can't fast for 2 weeks.
Oh no, you're talking about fasting.
Yeah,
Fasting.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
Jesus, no, I'm talking about.
No, I'm not talking
No,
about
I'm talking about intermittent. No, that gets us to 2 meals a day.
Right.
So-
What if someone just fasts?
So give me a term. Like,
Okay,
what
so
is
if you
fasting?
decide
24
I'm
hours,
going to go on
36 hours?
I'm going to go on a 36-hour fast.
That's probably the high end of what I would
Alright,
do.
let
And
me-
anything beyond that, I'd be a little bit concerned.
So
that
this
I'd
board
impact myself
is gonna stay with me.
that adaptation, yeah.
So when
This
you
board
go on
will
these
be sent
crazy
with a
3 to 5
scout.
day fasts, they report all this energy. They feel great. They feel amazing. What's going on there?
No, they've got their brains are using ketones.
Right.
So that's definitely where the energy, the feeling of amazing comes from. Typically, if you're fasting that long, you're not working out. Like any of these, like my wife does a 7-day water fast.
Oh, geez.
Twice a year.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what I
So you go on
That's-
vacation when that's happening?
I eat more. I eat for her. But she's
Why
gone.
does she do that?
She has this, she feels that like it's good for her. She's into the autophagy and some of the
Explain that.
anti-aging.
It burns cells.
Yeah, so one of the many things that happens when you fast is that the body goes into a different mode and starts to realize that there's fuel around. for a
I
while.
was fasting
So,
once too, actually
in
2
addition to burning
times.
stored body fat, in addition to making ketones. By the way, ketones come from fat.
Meaning
so
that I didn't
fat
eat
in
anything,
process also
just drank
stored
water.
ketones the brain produces.
And the first fasting was for
It
5
also-
days.
also says
No,
if you were to
no
be a-
food for
if you
5
had
days.
a brain, if you were a cell and you had a brain,
And the
it's
second
not-
was
generally
3
there's a lot
days,
of
I
fuel
think.
around. So
back
my
in the
job
day.
is to pass the genetic material along to the next generation. So there's plenty for 2 of us. So if I know 2 of us, that'd be great. That same cell, in the absence of this sort of food and nutrition, goes, oh, this
So
not even
yeah,
enough
I
for
know
one
what
of me,
fasting
well,
is.
2 of me, so I'm not going to divide. I'm going to repair what I have. And so the cell goes into a repair process where it starts to consume damaged proteins and damaged fats within itself. And it actually gets energy from that. Starts to repair broken strands of DNA or whatever little things are going on. It actually kills off senescent cells at that time. So it's an anti-aging strategy that a lot of people use. It's also God, I hate the term reset. I got
135.
because
It's overused.
no, and I used it in a book, but all of a sudden, in the context of what's going on in the world, and the Great Reset, like I never want to hear that term again.
Oh, the Great Reset, isn't that's the conspiracy theory that the government is using
Yeah.
this to change the
Yeah.
financial structure of the country?
And everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you hear that a lot in Florida? Is that what's going on?
No,
Especially
we
when
don't.
sports
No,
down there in Miami
no,
Beach?
no, we don't know, but I read a lot, Joe.
Oh.
I read the New York Times to see what the other side's doing. Yeah, but so she will do these fast, but she's metabolically flexible, so it's easy for her to do. But if you're not metabolically flexible, you take on a fast of 3 days, you can get through it, and probably good for you. My whole thing is I want this to be, if you chose to do something like that, I want it to be pleasurable and easy and graceful, and something you look forward to, not something you dread.
Now, is there amount? Can you intermittent fast and get your body to be more metabolically flexible in that way?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So I'm not even into the multi-day fasting. I'm into 2 meals a day. So the premise of the book is once you've developed metabolic flexibility, to engage in as much time as you can of not eating throughout the day to maximize all of
This
these
guy, the meat.
benefits that we just described that come from not eating.
Does it show the time? I'm on 20 minutes.
Most of the good things happen to us when we're not eating. Most of the repair, most of the recovery, most of the rebuilding.
And it shows me there is one concurrent
We're
view.
eating, which we have to do.
What does it mean?
It comes with inflammation and it's a necessary thing, but the good stuff all happens.
Who's watching? Is that probably that's me who's watching it, right?
Expand that window
Which
of
would
not
make
eating.
sense.
And with
Since
the
I have
2 meals
like
a day program,
5 followers.
pretty much anybody who's keto now does. You just have an evening meal, and then you don't eat until 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock the next day. So you have 2 meals a day, and you have that 18-hour window.
That's what you use.
Yeah, an 18-hour window. Yeah.
Why did you choose it?
It works for me. I mean, you can do 16. You can do. I mean, anything less than 14 is back to sort of where you were before. It's a little bit better, but it's not. Like I said, the more time that you can go between eating, the better.
They
And
got
it isn't
different
about
parameters.
so much a routine.
Why is this one so
daily
far off?
basis. It's basically, I certainly use that as a template, but once in a while I eat 1 meal a day. I'll go, dinner to dinner to dinner. And the beauty here is because I'm metabolically flexible, I have the confidence that I'm not tearing down muscle tissue. I have that my immune system is probably benefiting from it as opposed to being somehow hurt by it. I maintain muscle mass.
It's pretty hard to get them out.
Again, I have all this energy. And most importantly, I'm not hungry. I mean, hunger is the killer. Hunger ruins everything. So anytime we talk about these strategies, you have to address hunger first and foremost. Because if you ask people, well, one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to get hungry and you're going to have to fight your way through it. No, that's not how we do this. So with 2 meals a day, we build a strategy where, we eliminate the big 3, sugar, processed grains, and the industrial seed oils. And then we start to cut back a little bit on the starchy carbs for a while, because once you develop the flexibility, you can introduce the starchy carbs again. And then we basically say, look, let's see how long you can go without feeling bad when you wake up in the morning. And see if you can go 10 o'clock or 10:30 before you have to eat. And if you can go longer, that's great. And if you could go that long and do a workout and feel good, that's even better. So the end result is, well, this all came from a thought experiment I did a while back, where I looked at, first of all, how much food we eat as humans. And we eat a shitload of food. All of us pretty much eat way too much food. More food than we need, for sure. And most of us use as a metric, like, what can I get away with? Like, what's the most amount of this food I can eat and not get fat? Or what's the most amount of this dessert I can have and not feel like a glutton, or not feel guilty later, or not look like whatever. So we try to get away with as much as we can.
Right.
And a lot of guys in the gym, that's their thing. I love to eat, and I'm going to eat as much as I can. And if I can get away with more, I'm going to work out more. I'm going to balance it out. But it's kind of a ridiculous way of looking at life. Like, how much of a glutton can I be every day, every meal? So I did the reverse of that, and I thought, what's the least amount of food we can eat? And maintain muscle mass, build muscle mass. It's the least amount of food we can eat and have all the energy we need throughout the day, not get sick, and most importantly, not be hungry. And if you can look at that in terms of like the minimum effective dose of food, what's the least amount of food I can eat, and enjoy every freaking bite with gusto and delight, and then be okay with saying, you know what, I think I've had enough. I'm good. And typically, you find if you've developed this metabolic flexibility that you can eliminate 25 or 30% of the calories you used to eat with zero adverse effect, and probably entirely to your benefit.
When you go 16 to 18 hours a day, anyone does that. If you you do that on a regular basis, will that make your body more adapted to burning fat?
Absolutely.
Really? Even
Because
just,
because in the 16 to 18 hours a day, that's where your energy's coming from. And so we look at, you look at some of the top endurance athletes now. Zach Bitter, good example. Guy derives 97% of his energy when he's running a 100-mile race, doing 6-minute, 45-second miles. Derives 90 from fat. That was almost unheard of. Like the science community could not get their head around that for a long time. Thinking,
a lot of what he does is
28.
Yeah. What he does is like fatty ribeye steaks.
because it works for him. Because he's metabolically flexible and he's deriving most of his energy from fat.
But he does take in glucose on the day of
Metabolic
the race.
flexibility, so he's able to burn glucose, and it doesn't derail his fat burning or his ketone production.
Because his body's so accustomed to doing that.
It's so flexible, it's so efficient, it's so used to doing that.
So in your book, you set a guideline like how to get this started and what to do.
Oh yeah. No,
What made you do this? Because first of all, I know you're rich as fuck because I know you saw your company. So and then you didn't have to give up a lot of the money because you moved to Florida. But because of that, what motivates you to write another book?
I just, my original mission was to help 10 million people regain their health by understanding how the body works.
You got a number?
I had a number, 10 million. And then about,
Where'd that number come from?
just I pulled it out of my ass. So then a couple of years later, I'm like, I think I've already hit that number with books and seminars and blog posts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it 100. So I boosted it up to 100. One of the best things I did with the food company was I brought new people into understanding how the body works and how eating real food with healthy sauces and marinades and toppings and things that made that healthy food taste that much better.
Which channel should I take?
Again, I probably expanded the universe
A1,
of people that now begin to really
032, I
appreciate
guess.
the effects of food on the body. But I still have like a book here. I'm still doing books on on how we can achieve greatness. I don't often use that term, but how we can achieve this level of health and satisfaction and enjoyment of life. I mean, the tagline of my company is "Live Awesome," and as I said, I want everybody to, at the end of the day, all I want is to be happy. And if I can help you do that through my methods, and then the rest of what you do, whether it's financial or with your family, that's up to you. But I can certainly assist on the health side.
And when you started this book, was there anything surprising that you found while you were putting this book together?
No, this is really this is the synthesis of 30 years of doing this, and it's almost like this book was rewriting stuff that I'd already written, but in a way that's more user-friendly to the average person. So it's nothing in my framework has changed scientifically, but I'm always trying to figure out how can I say this in a way that will appeal to the most people. So I think everyone realizes they probably eat too much food, but how can I find a way to
I
not
think
only
I eat
convince
too
them
much
to do
food
it, but make it
sometimes,
easier
especially
and
on
make it
weekends.
not just easier, but
Because I feel like I don't
in a
eat
way
enough on
that
weekdays.
enhances their lives.
Shit.
People like those meal
Shit,
prep
go me
companies.
from
That's one of the things that people like about them is that they give you a reasonable portion of food, especially if it's a good company. It'll be based on your body mass and what kind of activities you're involved in. Do you ever use one of those, or do you recommend? anything
All right.
Well, no.
Now I
because
need to test that
now we
shit.
produce meals. So
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we have meals.
When did you guys start doing that?
Last year, pre-COVID, and then COVID sort of shut down the distribution because they're frozen meals. So they're frozen, but we have steak.
So what I want to do right now is to test. I'm gonna connect Arduino to a laptop.
We've got a
Run a simple
Asian
program.
dish.
Basically, I'm gonna put on a
in
screen
bags, and it's all free range, grass-fed,
all four
organic.
potentiometers
But
So
you
do
got-
you microwave
to
it?
see
How
if
do
they
you do that?
change the
Microwave
voltage
it.
value.
and some the skillet
Volume, which they should.
So
How long did it
Or
take
value.
to figure out how
I
to
don't
do
know,
that
voltage
where it
value,
tastes
I guess.
good, but still maintains
Works
all
both
the
ways,
nutrients,
to be
and
honest.
It seems like that's a challenge in and of itself.
that's a huge challenge, yeah. And the challenge is making it to scale, right? And
Right.
doing it in large quantities.
How many people do you serve with these?
Just one. It's just that these are individual serving
Right,
sizes.
I'm sorry, I meant how many people do you distribute these to?
Well, they're available in stores throughout the country. They carry us, yeah. So
it's not like you're not. It's not like a website where.
no, you can't. It's because it's frozen. It's too logistically complicated to do individual shipments. They need to stay frozen. So it's in the frozen section of a lot of stores now, and that was one of the things that was curtailed from COVID. So we were going to launch last year in April, and then a lot of the stores said, "Look, there's going to be nobody coming into our stores. We're not going to make any big shifts until we know what this thing is sorts out." But it's taking off. One of the programs we have right now, and I think we told your team this, is we're going to donate 50,000 of these meals to needy families through a program. I think I hope it's in the show notes, but if not, just you can Google Primal Kitchen and check it out there. But we're by purchasing Primal Kitchen products and showing a proof of purchase, we'll donate one of these meals to families in need.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's very nice. So you were personally involved in the construction of these meals? Like, did you have to?
Oh my God! So I sold the company, Kraft Heinz, 2 years ago, and I've been intimately involved ever since, and mostly on the R&D side. So the amount of R&D that's gone into creating these has been amazing.
So if you want to see what's going on my
Zoom
screen,
calls to cook in real time whatever we're working on, whatever the latest iteration is, and then there'll be 8 of us on a call.
basically I'm running this Arduino. You're not going to see shit here, but I'm running this simple Arduino
It's
code.
really, I think, well done. And by consensus, we come down.
Just
to the final
loaded some of the examples that they have here.
Parse that out between, like, say, there's a guy that weighs 250
So
pounds
you-
versus a guy that weighs 150 pounds. Obviously,
By
you're not
two.
doing the same. To the big guy.
By 2 of them if it's a big guy, yeah.
But is it designed for a specific size?
You
Just
know,
gonna modify it a
No,
bit
it's-
to fit
but
to
that's
my
a good point.
needs.
I mean, it's designed for moms who are, in a hurry and don't want to fix dinner for their kids or whatever, or want to spend less time fixing dinner for their kids and want to serve them up something healthy.
2,
So it really fills a need.
3.
I on occasion, I love to cook steak in my house, so I mostly have steak. But if I'm out of steak or whatever, and
Is that a staple of your diet? Is
Yeah.
that mostly what you eat?
red meat is still mostly what I eat. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what do you say to people that think that's
How do
terrible?
I?
More for me.
But isn't that
More for me.
I don't mean it's
Does
just
that-
environment, I mean terrible for you physically.
My head is kind of scrambled when I try to write code in
Not
Arduino
anymore.
because
Not
I don't
after
do
you
it
had
often.
Saladino on the show and
Hey
and
guys,
Baker,
can you keep it quieter a bit?
He's like
I'm
the
talking
carnivore
about-
diet. It's eating a lot of steak is a thing. Now when I say a lot of
So yeah,
steak,
I usually code in PHP and JavaScript, so I started in Python, so I kind of keep forgetting how is Python grammar works. Hopefully it works this way.
Every meal I eat has to be a great meal. I don't eat anything that's healthy just because it's healthy. And every bite of food I put in my mouth, I want it to be spectacular. So I orchestrate my eating around that, and when I'm done, I'm full.
And so you do most of your cooking?
I do most of my cooking for my wife. My wife has recently decided to become a great chef, and she's
Fuck no, it doesn't work this way. Request no.
no no, there is
So if I do that,
yeah.
That is, I mean, you want to talk about primal.
Yeah.
That's a weird instinct that men have to want to cook steak. I
so that
recently,
would work. What does it
I
mean?
cook most of my meals on a pellet grill using Traeger,
Yep.
which I love. It's really simple to use, and you can maintain the temperature perfectly. But I started
Warning:
cooking some
character
stuff
cannot
recently
constant too
over
long
an
for its
Argentine
type.
style grill where you cook over wood, just plain old wood. It's so dumb.
What if I use
Takes
these
so much
guys?
time. It's so much more annoying, but yet I love it. But it's also this weird thing. You're cooking over wood. That's
It seems like
very
double
strange.
quotes.
It's very strange
Work.
with men and meat over fire. Like there's something gets ignited, especially if you kill the meat yourself. Then it adds
Okay.
an extra thing.
Yeah.
You hunted the meat and then you cook it over fire. It's almost like I can get a drum.
We got the Arduino Uno board. Everything should be working fine. Upload.
Like forever. It's been the big cliche. Men like to grill.
And we need to pull up the window. Fuck
My
is this
son,
window?
who was
Serial
mostly
number.
vegetarian, he eats a lot of eggs. Stuff. We wanted to hike up to the top of El Cap to watch a friend of mine jump off with a parachute the next day.
Oof, what the fuck is
I
this?
brought a steak up, and it was, I literally cooked it over a fire hanging from a stick. And my son was so cute, he was so impressed. And like that's really prime. All I got to do is
You get these little tiny grills that fold up, little camp grills. They're this tiny little thing that's made out of metal that's like the size of a notebook. And the little sticks come out of the corner, and you put it on the ground, you light a fire underneath it, get it hot, and you roll right over it.
Maybe next time. But this time I was hanging it off a stick. It was great.
Well, the problem is like you use the wrong stick.
Yeah, if the steak falls in the fire.
Also, if you don't know about poison sticks, poison branches.
So weird.
I think Callan was telling me about some guy
I wonder if it's the problem with potentiometer or not. But I'm getting weird fucking shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like there's certain plants that, if you eat the plant, they'll kill you. Like if you shave that
I wonder why.
and then stick it in your meat, you're getting all of the chemicals from that plant.
Okay, let's try to put out the second value. See if we're gonna get the same thing.
So, again, living in Miami Beach, cut back to, I was in Malibu for 3 years.
Right.
And I had a gas.
Same thing.
Inside,
I'm sure if you see it,
well, I had to learn when I got to condo,
but it shows me like
learn how to cook in a pan on an electric
right here.
stove.
It just shows me total, and then I start changing. It shows me weird shit. Look at this. This is when aliens start speaking to you. You know that.
So it's moderate heat or lower. Because if it's butter, you don't
As it usually happens, you gotta test every single step of what you want to do. Because you never know where you fucked up. Like, I would have never known that this potentiometer doesn't work where it's supposed to.
use that.
What if we use like a standard potentiometer that they gave me? What's gonna happen?
I don't like the cleanup like
This is the standard blue one that they gave me.
that. I know. I have one. Don't reach for it. I'm the simplest guy. I mean, salt, maybe some pepper, but always salt. And then I'll maybe steam up some broccoli, slather it with butter, glass of wine. I'm good to go.
And when you portion it out, like how many ounces do you think you need?
I mean, I'll typically finish at 12 ounces.
That's a reasonable size steak. It's fairly actually a small size for a restaurant.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, if I went to a restaurant, I wouldn't finish at 16 minutes.
What if I just put sensor value?
I went to a restaurant before vacation once and I watched Jordan eat a 32-ounce tomahawk by himself.
Exotic is the himself.
That's all he eats. Doesn't need anything for red meat.
Wow.
Just water. That's all he does.
Okay. I mean, that's a no. Listen, that's a choice. But I
It helps him.
I mean, one of the things I come back to is I want to be happy. I want to enjoy everybody's food, and I have to like some vegetables too.
Okay,
Like
it changes.
different things. So
The problem was with that word total.
demonstrate to me that you're doing it is better for your health. I might say,
What if I
no, there's a
put this back?
line.
How it was.
Taste and crunch of whatever it is in certain foods.
I enjoy salads.
Alright, 0.
I think also there's something to it's
Yeah, now it works great.
kind of like grinding your body for food. You're starting off with this sort of light food.
But for some reason, when I put some words in the serial print lane, It doesn't give me.
It just tastes the best too. I just always feel like
Maybe there is a problem with the
I've done the
plus.
a couple times now. I did it 2 months in a row.
Like its own operator to combine strings. I would assume that's the
Which,
problem.
by the way,
Let's try that.
worse than, it's like the combination of the fat and sugar. Yeah. We can get into. Let's get into that. Tell me. No, I mean, a lot of people screw up on keto or screw up on some of these, even IF, intermittent fasting, because
Yeah,
if you're metabolically flexible,
it seems like it's adding two strings together and
fats in your meal,
just creating havoc.
and you cut the carbs down. But if you then finish it off with
But how do you print?
now you're raising your insulin. The insulin is
That's where it
raising your blood
starts.
sugar, first of all. And then you're raising your insulin, so the insulin is trying to get rid of glucose.
How do you print strings and this thing together?
It's a fat cell, so you can't burn it off. It's a bit of a, it's sort of the worst thing you could do would be to combine standard American diet with parts of, keto or parental diet. So don't do that.
Okay, so if you're going to eat healthy food, you're going to eat just steak.
Prints data to see.
Yeah.
And what is the mechanism? What's going on when you're combining the sugar?
Six.
The sugar. I mean, the mechanism is the same. Is if you're eating otherwise healthy food, even if you've got some starchy carbs in there, or some vegetables that are high in carbohydrate, they're slow burn carbohydrates. They don't go directly in your bloodstream. They sort of move in your bloodstream over time. Many of these are locked in fibrous matrix. It takes a while. Then when you consume the sugar, it goes straight into the bloodstream, so the blood sugar goes sky high, and now it sets up this whole reaction where in your pancreas is secreting insulin, the insulin's trying to get rid of all the sugar that's in the bloodstream. And
So a healthy meal can be ruined by this.
Zero print,
yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, you can
print
have a healthy
words
dessert.
and
Well,
data.
mascarpone cream or something like that is one of my favorite desserts. And we would serve it at dinner parties in the house.
Tiramisu right next to it, they dive on that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's,
And those keto desserts are mostly
also, no, I just have to roll my eyes. The paleo treats and the keto desserts and all these things are like trying to come up with a version. It's almost like, Beyond Meat trying to come up with a piece of steak that's made out of vegetables. And here we're trying to create a sugary dessert that looks like a dessert, tastes like a dessert, but it's made with
It seems like I need to create
I think there's real promise in
separately. I need to define the string separately. I cannot just put it into the serial print lane right away. I have to define it first as a string, and then you should do the magic.
meat substitutes that are made with seed oils. Just knowing that there was a study we talked about on the podcast where they fed rats
Three, uno.
these things, and they have horrible fucking rats eat each other. They eat everything.
Yeah.
They eat garbage.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah.
They eat those fake burgers. They're
Yeah.
sick as fuck.
Now do
They start
this,
getting liver problems.
Yeah,
and I'll do this.
can't explain it.
It's amazing how many people think that those things are good for you.
Beyond
Let's check.
It's impossible. Oh, wait. No. It's just nuts. It's just nuts.
Let's
that-
upload.
that, again, the collective conscience of the country
Now it works.
would rally around something so
So yeah, basically I couldn't put.
so antipathetic to health.
What do you guys see there?
In the name of climate, yeah, whatever.
Alright, I couldn't put
Even still, the matrix, lab grown meat, cell-based stuff.
I have zero concurrent viewers, so weird. Anyways,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
You don't even have to
Yeah, now it works. So now I can actually check that all of these guys would work.
Red, dark, and it's denser, it's more chewy, right? Because it's a denser.
And you think you're going to get that from the lab grown? No. So, we're back to.
You get a headless elephant.
Okay.
You put steroids and you have it running on a treadmill.
Let's patent that, Jamie. Right, make a note. Yeah, I think, regenerative agriculture is the way we need to go to feed the world. Not through ceasing throwing animals and trying to do it all in the lab.
Well, Rob Wolf has a new book out. He was supposed to be on right around April, but shit went down. But his book is about
Tres, cuatro,
yeah, the people that are skeptical though don't think that a scale is
cinco.
necessary to provide as many people with meat as eat meat in this country because of fast food production. Fast food production, the way they believe, the way I've heard it argued, it makes a lot of sense, is that the scale in which we're, because of fast food, requires factory farming to keep up with it.
Well, for now it does, but there's got to be a tipping point. There's got to be a point at which we have to recognize that by concentrating.
This Arduino
Not just food, but all of the
code window is kind of slow.
that there's a point
I don't know why.
satisfy people's needs. And so I see us sort of going back to the cottage industry farm, the local farmers. I would love to see any subsidies in agriculture. It should be small farms that are trying to do regenerative agriculture and reclaim the topsoil and build
Two,
back instead of continuously depleting.
Yeah,
three,
so I think one of the interesting things is that one of the big
dos,
arguments against everyone eating vegetables is monoculture agriculture, which is essentially what you would need. This is the real problem. It becomes a
fuck.
because everyone, I think, everyone with a moral, with a heart and a soul agrees that factory farming, in terms of animals, is
First,
hard. But don't think they understand the horrors of monocrop agriculture and how bad it is. It's so
third,
bad for the environment. It's so bad for the soil. It's bad for the animals. It's terrible for all the wildlife that gets moved and displaced because of the fact
come on.
that 4,000 acres of corn or some crazy shit like that. And when they churn that corn up with a combine, a lot of shit dies. There is no way you're going to go out there and handpick 4,000 acres of corn. You're not going to do it. You use machinery.
Okay, let's
With
check.
that machinery, it's indiscriminate. It chews up everything.
No,
That-
fuck. No, I'm not ready yet.
You have to use something that discourages predation. You have to use all these different methods to keep animals. If you have 4,000 acres of corn, you're going to have a food source where animals are going to swarm in and eat all the
now.
crops. That's what they would do. If that was it was a normal thing that occurred in the wild. If in the wild, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was 4,000 acres of naturally grown vegetables, that would be one of the most wildlife-rich areas. 100%. Yeah. So how do they keep that from happening? Well, they do with poison. They discourage it with pesticides, with all
What's
sorts
up,
of different
it's
methods
actually
of
100.
eliminating insects. If you care about insects, you destroy insect populations. Insects which are also critical to the growth of the soil. It's like there's this natural cycle. So then they have to add a bunch of nitrogen and shit to the soil, and they estimate that we have I think the latest estimation, Jamie looked this up, the United States farmlands have, I believe, 60 more seasons.
Okay, running all of them in 2033,
Dwindling numbers, diminishing numbers.
which is the maximum number. Okay, all of them work.
Jamie's gonna be
Killing
here
one.
and crops.
He's going to be in this bunker with his lab-grown
Killing
meat.
second
I'll be
one.
113, hooked up to an IV NAD machine, and Jamie will be hooked up their truck and eating lab-grown carrots. I just don't understand why people don't recognize that both these things are terrible.
All right,
Factory farming is
so
terrible.
this part
There's
works,
monocrop agriculture, and
which is
this
great.
the argument they always use. We need these monocrop agriculture things to
This fucker is running.
what you need is natural grasslands, which is when you saw, when the settlers saw millions of bison running across
The second step,
What were they eating? Were they eating
this
monocrop GMO soy?
marvelous
No,
adventure
they weren't. They were
of
eating
mine.
grass. That's what they're supposed to eat. And when they do that, they shit on the ground. That shit fertilizes the
is
grasses, fertilizes all the other plants, and then you have this whole ecosystem of animals.
I need to
exist
connect these
within-
guys
within these fields, and it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to
together.
exist together, and they work together symbiotically. to make
And
sure that
I can do it
can
through my
That's
PCB
awesome.
actually,
And this is what Rob's book
or
is about, and a lot of other
the
people
power
talk about
distribution
as well.
board,
That when it's
PDB,
done correctly, it actually
I guess
reduces
it's called.
carbon.
Anyways,
Nature always has the best answer. We try to circumvent it. We try to,
the ground.
Tech tries to solve the wet problem. When the people in tech go, well, we can fix it.
And I know you can power it with Ven, so that's what I'm gonna do actually.
That sounds disgusting.
Wanted to raise 200
Did they not see the fucking movie?
What? Yeah, exactly.
Soylent, if you don't know, Soylent Green.
It's people.
Yeah, Soylent Green is a science fiction movie from the 1970s, and it's about people accidentally eating people. Yeah, not accidentally. They didn't know they were eating people. They're eating this new food product called Soylent Green.
Why does it stop lighting?
But the concept was
So weird.
some tech guys got together and said, geez, people just don't like to eat. They don't want to spend the time eating. They want to get back to programming. So let's make a complete. That's a tech. Robots. So let's make a complete meal. What's up? Just name that. Yeah. They knew what they were. They knew what they were doing. Yeah.
Well, of course it is. I mean, Soylent's not a thing. Like you have to name. I mean, you can't not know about that movie. I mean, so someone can tell you.
Well, certainly if you went to trademark.
But it's just the idea that people don't like to eat. What the fuck are you so crazy?
How can we do it quickly and efficiently?
Some people don't like to eat though. My friend Paul, he fucking hated foods. He was super skinny and he never ate. And he would always say, I hate food. As a seafood, you have to.
That's what you call an outlier.
I think, yeah. I think, like, two of my daughters have completely different taste buds. My 12-year-old daughter does not like spicy food. My 10-year-old daughter will love spicy food. She'll all my habanero sauces and all these different stuff, different, like, pretty spicy sauces. She gets into it. And I'm like, it must be a gene.
Alrighty.
I don't think it's
So these are my
No, I don't know.
radio transceivers and transmitters called NRF 24. Founded through YouTube. Wizards. Little info about that. So it needs a lot of pins, quite sensible to noise.
You know what I had?
Might need
I lost my taste for smell and taste.
external 3.3 volt supply, and supposed to be working for more than 700 meters of a range, so it should be pretty good. Now I need to figure out how to run them, get them to speak basically,
Yeah, well,
so I can
well, again, if you read
I need to monitor this guy somehow.
flexible, a lot of this hunger, appetite, cravings go away. That's
also a matter of
to see what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And for that, I would need to go to actually YouTube and pull out that tutorial that I found. It's actually a pretty cool channel. With this dude, he's like an old elderly guy, probably in his like 50s or 60s or whatever. Dronebot Workshop. Dronebot Workshop. That thing is the best. Like this channel, strongly advise to check it out if you're into this, because he explains everything, like lots of stuff perfectly. I'm just gonna do NRF 24. I'm just gonna watch his tutorial which is like 40 minutes or so.
And with regard to eating, one of the issues that I saw people have, well, noon, it's lunchtime, right? It's like, whether I'm hungry or not, it's noon. Right. We should have lunch. Well, what if you prioritize something else at noon, to your point, and be okay with the fact that you don't have.
Another cool channel is called Electro News. That guy is pretty cool too.
But if you, again, if you're doing well, okay.
But right now I found
But let's go back to breakfast. Like,
How to Mechatronics 4 years ago. I'm gonna give this a try.
For bathroom odors that linger, try Febreze Small Spaces. Just press firmly and it continuously eliminates odors in the air and on soft surfaces for 45 days.
Hello, Dan Nadolski here from howtomechatronics.com. In this Arduino tutorial, we will learn how to make a wireless communication between two Arduino boards using the NRF24L01 transceiver module. For explaining the wireless communication, we will make two examples. The first one will be sending a simple Hello World message from one Arduino to another, and the second example will be a bidirectional communication between two Arduino boards, where using the joystick at the first Arduino, we will control the servo motor at the second Arduino, and vice versa, using the push button of the second Arduino, we will control the LED at the first Arduino.
It's weird because
Now,
he's on
let's take a closer
RF24.
look at the NRF24L01 transceiver
It's
module.
different.
It uses the
8 pins. I have 8 pins too.
Like, I never even thought about it until a friend of mine said, hey, bikes with 4.5 inch wide tires, let's go out in sand, let's go out this. It's so much so that there's times where and the sand is so fluffy from the wheels you're walking through, that you like have to focus on going 2 miles an hour just to stay upright. But it's an incredible workout. It's a lot of fun. You're on the beach, you're seeing all the people
Weird.
4 GHz band, and it can operate with baud rates from 250 kilobits per second up to.
In Malibu, if I would get on a mountain bike, there were hills all over the place. But I worked harder in the deep sand than I would have on the hills.
So this is the ground, I guess.
That's a tough question. Probably yes. I would not have left. Yeah.
Like you enjoy Miami regardless.
Love Miami.
That's so crazy. Every time I go to Miami, it seems like chaos. It seems like loud music and Lamborghinis and like I'm in and out. I'm like
Yeah, same thing here. When I was in Miami, I stayed in downtown Miami and it was literally like Lambo passing by every fucking half an hour. At night, during the day, early morning, it doesn't matter. I think they have like a schedule. Like, you up, Tony, take your fucking Lamborghini and make the roar in downtown. That's how it sounded like.
2 megabits per second. If used in open space and with lower baud rate, its range can reach up to 100 meters. This module can use 125 different channels, which gives the possibility to.
So weird. His NFL is different than mine. NRF, I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe I should.
If you have seen the video and if you have built the robot car base based on the video, first of all, thank you very much for doing that. But secondly, you should know that I have
I'll stick with the Drone Bond workshop.
a couple of
The only
wireless
note though is
so
I usually
specifically
watch his
changes
tutorials
going
at
to the L298
1.5 speed.
and H-bridge motor controller. The reason is that some of the pins I use conflicted with some of the pins I needed for the NRF24L01.
Alexa, pause.
wires, so I had to move some of the wiring around. And I also used a pin that you might not expect me to have used, so you'll be learning another Arduino design technique that you might not know. So if you have built the base, pay particular attention to the wiring changes you're going to need to make. Having said all that now, let's go and learn a little bit about the NRF24L01 RF transceiver modules.
You're a small business with big goals, and Sage Accounting can help you reach them.
Okay, cool.
With time-saving automated invoice.
Yeah.
The NRF24L01 is an inexpensive radio transceiver module based upon a chip designed by Nordic Semiconductor. It operates in the 2.4 to 2.5 GHz industrial, scientific, and medical, or ISM band. It connects to external devices using a serial peripheral interface, or SPI port. It's used in many applications such as wireless mice, remote controls, and many industrial designs. There are many configurations of the NRF24L01. Today we'll be dealing with two popular styles. One is a module with an integrated antenna. The other is a module with a low noise amplifier and external antenna for...
That's what I have. Low noise amplifier and external antenna. But I don't have this thing. Anyways.
performance. Now here are the pinouts of the NRF24L01. Note that I'm showing the module with the internal antenna, but the one with the external antenna has the identical pinouts. This is also the top view of the module. Now pin 1, which is indicated with a square around the pin, is the ground pin. Pin 2 is VCC. This can be any voltage between 1.9 and 3.6 volts. Please note that the NRF24L01 cannot be powered directly with a 5-volt power supply. Pin 3 is the chip enable pin. This is an active high pin, and when it's activated, tells the chip to either transmit or receive, depending upon which mode it is currently in. Pin 4 is chip select not. This is tied to the SPI bus slave select, and is an active low pin. When it is activated, it indicates that this particular module has been selected on the SPI bus. Pin 5 is the SCK, or clock pin. This is the clock signal from the master on the SPI bus. Pin 6 is master out, slave in. This is the output from the master, which in our case is the Arduino, or the input to the NRF24L01. Pin 7 is master in, slave out. This is the output from the NRF24L01. Pin 8 is the IRQ, or interrupt pin. This is an active low pin that sends interrupts generated by the NRF24L01. Now, as I showed you in the animation, there are a couple of different styles of NRF24L01. I wanted to show them to you on the workbench here right now. This is the standard module that you'll pick up. It's a very inexpensive module, and I'm not sure if you can see this correctly, but over here, it's got a very squiggly little line on the printed circuit board. That's actually an integrated antenna for the module, so no external antenna is necessary for this. This module is also an NRF24L01. As you can see, it has an external antenna, and that antenna is actually connected. You can remove it if you wish. I'll remove that now. And this uses what's called an SMA connector, which is a standard connector for antennas, so you can connect another antenna to this as well. In addition, you might notice an additional chip on here, and this is the low noise amplifier. What this does is it takes the receiving signal and it amplifies it. It doesn't do anything to the transmitting signal. The transmitting signal is the same as the other module, except it's enhanced by the better antenna. But the received signal goes through this low noise amplifier, making it a lot stronger, allowing this to communicate more reliably over greater distances. Now this third thing over here I'm going to show you in a moment. It's a very handy little circuit board that you can use when you're working with the NRF24L01. What you do is you plug your NRF24L01 into the connector over here, and then you can use these connectors to go out to your Arduino or Raspberry Pi or whatever it is you happen to be wiring to. The key thing about this board is it also has a 3.3 volt voltage regulator on it, so you power it with 5 volts instead of the 3.3 volts. And as I'll get into in a moment, there are a lot of advantages to doing this, so I would strongly recommend that you pick a couple of these up as well. It'll make your life a lot easier. Now, before we begin our experiments, I want to give you a few tips for working with the NRF24L01, because although these modules are very reliable and dependable, they can be a bit difficult to get them working at times. And most of those difficulties will boil down to two things, either wiring or power supply. Now, wiring simply means you have to make certain that you've got the right connectors going to the right pins on your Arduino. And while that may appear obvious, it often isn't. You'll have to remember that different libraries for the Arduino use different pins for the NRF24L01. So you need to pay attention to which library you're using in your code and wire the module accordingly. So if you're trying trying different sketches that use different libraries, make sure you look at the wiring. Another thing is, if you use one of these adapter devices, which I do recommend, some of them, including the ones I bought, have a mislabeling on them, and they've taken the input and the output pin and reversed them. So if you're having trouble to get things to work and you're using one of these devices, check that out. Your input and output pins may just simply be mislabeled and you'll have to reverse the wiring on that. Now, another problem with these devices, though, is power supply. The NRF24L01 uses a 3.3 volt power supply, as opposed to the 5 volt supply you're probably used to using. Now, if you're using one of these modules, it's great because you apply 5 volts to it. It's got an internal voltage regulator and a couple of filter capacitors, and it powers the module perfectly. However, you may be tempted to wire it directly to your Arduino and use the 3.3 volt output on the Arduino. And in some cases that'll work, and in some cases it won't. The reason is many Arduino clones, including a lot of Arduino Mega clones, do not have sufficient current on the 3.3 volt output. They use a very small voltage regulator. And you'll find you have problems running these modules because the transmissions can sometimes take peaks that exceed the value that those devices can provide. Now, you can sometimes rectify that problem by putting a filter capacitor directly across the power supply leads on your RF module. Something about 100 microfarads or so has been proven to work well. But again, I would recommend just using one of these little adapters. You can just wire it up to 5 volts, and aside from that little pin mislabeling, these things work wonderfully and will make it so much easier for you to experiment with these modules. And these only cost about $1 or so. They're not very expensive at all. So having said that, let's get started with our experiments. Now here are the connections for our demonstrations. Note that you will need to build 2 of these circuits, one to act as a server and one to act as a client. The connections on both are identical. Now we'll start with an Arduino Uno, of course, and I'm going to be using the NRF24L01 adapter. Now if you aren't using the adapter, you can wire directly to the NRF24L01, but you'll have to pay attention to the power supply connection. So we'll start off with the power supply connection. If you're using the adapter, connect the 5 volts to the 5 volt input on the adapter, and the ground to the ground pin. Now if you're using the NRF24L01 by itself, connect 3.3 volts to the NRF24L01 VCC connection, and the ground to the ground. You'll also probably need to use decoupling capacitors, such as a 100 microfarad capacitor across the power supply line. You may also find that it'll work better when it's powered with an external power supply, such as a battery, as opposed.
But I have the I2C bus though. So it should be good without that shit.
Being powered by the USB port if you're not using the adapter. For both the adapter and the NRF24L01, the remaining connections are as follows. The CE pin, which is pin 3 on the NRF24L01, is connected to Arduino Digital I/O pin 8. The CSN pin, which is pin 4 on the NRF24L01, is connected to Arduino pin 10. The clock pin, which is pin 5 on the NRF24L01, is connected to pin 13. The master out slave in pin, which is pin 6 on the NRF24L01, is connected to pin 11. The master in slave out pin, which is pin 7 on the NRF24L01, is connected to pin 12. Note we are not using the interrupt pin from the NRF24L01 in our experiments. So now that we have 2 Arduinos wired up to NRF24L01, we're ready to begin our experiments. Now you may recall that when I was talking about wiring the NRF24L01 up to an Arduino, I mentioned that the pinouts would be different depending upon which library you chose to use. Now I've wired these up to use the Radiohead library. If you followed my video on using the 433 MHz RF modules, then you've already installed the Radiohead library into your Arduino IDE. But if you haven't, then you're going to need to do that. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. It basically involves just downloading a zip file and installing it from that. Now Radiohead, not to be confused with the band that wrote the OK Computer album, is a library that was written by Mike McCauley for a company called Airspace, and it's an excellent library for all sorts of RF modules, including the NRF24L01. And the library comes with a number of example sketches, and we're going to be following some of these example sketches. Now, in order to do this, I'm transmitting the vast distance between this workbench over here and this workbench over here. Now, this is all of about 2 meters or so, and you could use either of the NRF24L01 modules. You could use these small ones that have the integrated antenna, or you could use the ones with the external antenna, which is what I've chosen to use. Now, even over this distance, I found that using these modules with the integrated antenna, although they worked fine, when I got in between the 2 modules, my body was actually enough to block the signal. And while I'd like to think that might be due to my magnetic personality, it's actually true of any human body, because after all, the human body is mostly composed of water, and water is pretty good at attenuating RF signals. Now, using these antennas, however, I found I could transmit from any 2 points in my house. So as an example, my workshop is down in the basement, in the very corner of the basement, and I went to the 2nd floor to a room on the opposite corner of the house and had had no trouble doing the transmission, going through all the walls and the floors, and also the interference from the Wi-Fi router that I've got in the next room, from the Wi-Fi access point I have upstairs, from a number of cordless phones in the house. So it's really quite reliable using these ones with the antenna connection. Now you'll also notice I'm using 2 computers for these experiments, and that's kind of ideal because I've got one for the server and one for the client. Now I realize that many of you won't have 2 computers, but that isn't going to prevent you from doing the experiments. What you'll need to do is compile and download the code individually onto each Arduino, and then power them both off of batteries, and use your computer to monitor one of the Arduinos and monitor the serial port so you can see what's going on. So you can do this quite easily with just one computer, but because I have a computer on each workbench here, I'm going to do that. So let's take a look at our first experiment using the Radiohead library. So first we'll need to install the Radiohead library. Now, as I said, if
we'll see how it's gonna work because, well, they need to work in the water. So if the shed doesn't work in the water, I'm fucked.
you've seen the video I did on the 433 megahertz RF modules, then you may have installed this library into your Arduino IDE already. But if you haven't, you'll first need to visit the Radiohead webpage and get the library. I have a link to the page in the article associated with this video. Now, at the very top of the page, you'll see a link over here to a zip file with the latest version of the Radiohead library. Click on that and download the zip file to a location on your computer that you're going to remember. Now go into your Arduino IDE and go up to Sketch, go to Include Library, and do Add Zip Library. Navigate to the location where you downloaded your library. Choose the library and click OK. The library has now been added to your Arduino IDE. Now, some people say that you need to restart the IDE in order to activate it, but I haven't found that to be true. However, if you have odd results, you might want to give that a try. Now, the library itself comes with a number of example sketches, and we're going to use a couple of them, one for the receiver and one for the transmitter, or in other words, the server and the client. So let's go and take a look at those sketches right now. Go under File, go to Examples, and then scroll down in Examples until you get Examples from Custom Libraries, and you should see Radiohead. Radiohead has a number of submenus, so go to NRF24, and let's take a look at the NRF24 client. Let's expand that a bit. Now the sketch starts off by including a couple of libraries. The SPI library, because as you recall, we will be using the SPI interface. It also includes the Radiohead NRF24 library. Create an instance of that, which we're calling NRF24. In the setup, we set that instance up. So basically, as long as it initializes, we'll set it up for a default of 2.402 gigahertz, which is channel 2. Then we'll change that over to channel 1. It's set up to a default data rate of 2 megabits per second and a transmit power of 0 dBm. Now bear in mind that with these modules, if you reduce the data rate, you can increase the distance that you're sending. Now on to the loop. Now recall that this is the client. So we'll go into the serial monitor and we'll say we're sending something to the server, and we're going to send a message to the server. Now we'll use an unsigned 8-bit integer in an array called data, and we'll set that to the value of hello world. And so that's the data that we're going to do. And so we are going to send that data using a command that sends the data, plus it needs to know the size of the data, which we just use Arduino size of command to get. So now that the packet has been sent, we wait for a reply. We use the buffer command to get the maximum message length, which I believe is 32 bits minus a few overhead bits, so it works out to be 28 bits. And then we set the length of our buffer to the size of the buffer. Then we wait for a reply. We take a look at the buffer that has that correct length inside it. If we get that, we say got reply, and we print out our reply in the serial monitor. If we don't get a reply after a timeout period, then we'll print receive failed. And so this will happen if the transmitter and receiver are too far from each other, or if, like I said, if you get in the way of the two of them. If we don't get any kind of a reply at all, we'll print this, no reply, is the NRF24 server running. Then we delay the whole thing for 400 milliseconds and start the loop over and over again. So in our serial monitor, we should observe the text that we are sending data and we're waiting for a reply, and if we do get the reply, we'll print it out. So now that we've seen the client side, let's take a look at the server side. So go back into Examples, go back to Radiohead, oops, go to NRF24, we'll do the NRF24 Sentry sketch for this one. Now, this will be loaded onto our second Arduino. So it starts off the same way by loading the SPI and the RH NRF24 libraries, and we set up an instance called NRF24. The setup is exactly the same. We set up our serial monitor, and we set up the NRF24. We initialize it and set the value. We change the channel to channel 1. You can experiment by changing these channel numbers, by the way. You may find another channel works better in your location. Just make certain to change the channel on the receiver and the transmitter to match. And after that, it's very similar. We are looking to see if we have a message inside the buffer, and if we do have a message, we will print got request and we'll print it, and then we'll send a reply. Again, we make an array and we say, and hello back to you, and we send that out as a packet and we print that we have sent the reply. If we don't get anything from the other unit, we put receive failed over here. So load these up to the two Arduinos, and then we'll take a look at the serial monitors and watch our server and client transmit and receive between each other. All right, I've got my demonstration running right now. I've got it on two computers. The computer on this workbench is my server computer, and the computer on this workbench is the client computer. And I've got the two serial monitors up so you can see them as well. And as you can see from the monitors, the server is sending a reply and got a request, hello world, sent a reply. The client is saying, sending to NRF24 server, it's got a reply, and hello back to you. Or it's asking, is the server running? And it's doing that because I'm blocking the signal with my body. As I mentioned before, that will happen. I'm using the small modules with the integrated antennas, and that's the reason I'm getting these errors. I actually wanted to do this so that I could show you the errors. If I were to substitute these modules, the ones with the long antennas, there doesn't seem to be anything I can do to induce errors. I even tried putting a metal pot over the top of the entire circuit board to block the signal, and that wasn't even enough to block out the signal. So these make a very strong signal. So as you can see, this works. We're sending data back and forth between the two devices, replying to the data when we get it on this device. And so the first experiment works quite well. So let's move on to another Radiohead library demonstration.
Maybe I should get that thing. How's it called? NRF24L01 adapter module. Let's see what's. Maybe I should get that one. $8.99. $6.99. It doesn't look like it's a valid logic regulator. These look like it's what I need. Yeah, 3.3 word regulator. Yeah, it's the thing I need actually. Another $9 invested into this utopia of building an underwater drone named Scout. And I'm gonna get it tomorrow. So I can connect all this awesomeness. So I guess I'll wait till tomorrow till I get that thing. And then I'll continue, I guess. I mean, alright. Yeah, see, I mean, next so you can you guys see them. And this guy is gonna control all three motors, which I'll put together our distribution board. Now, what I need to put inside, basically, this is gonna be like a separate workstation. I don't need to do anything about this part. I'll just hook up the radio transmitter, and I'll be sending out signals for to control the motors, which I have with these 4 potentiometers, and that way I'll be able to control all four of these guys. And so that part is simple right here. What I need to do here though is I need to compile everything together and put it into a casing, and then connect encased, and then it's gonna be interesting. I wonder if I need to do everything together at once, meaning that try to develop the model of the case that will hold, that will be able to accommodate everything, because I need to add the Raspberry Pi to it. Also, it will add the lens soon, which is gonna send the signal. I need to add one I2C bus, just here, so my Arduino and Raspberry Pi can talk to each other. And what are these? Can talk to each other, and then I need to add GPS tracker. What's this baby? I think it's one of the this is antenna, so it's not. That's another kind of transmitter, I believe. Okay, they go right here, hand in hand. What is this? So HT, that's even. And these are all kinds of receivers and transmitters. So that's actually not what I'm looking for. I need to find a gyroscope. I haven't tested these yet. I don't know how they work. But yeah, so this guy, this is the, I don't need it yet. I2C bus already taken out one. And I think this is gyro. Yeah. This is gyroscope. And so So the next step, basically, I mean, I don't have to put these guys in there yet. I just need to put this guy inside, and basically that would be it. Yet I need to the next step. Once I figure out these guys, well, the next step would be to learn how to get the gyroscope information, because that's the most important thing basically. Because I don't even need to like GPS and my Raspberry Pi board didn't even come into play yet. I need to figure out how to work with Arduino, so Arduino can control my drone as far as its position, how to flip it on the side, how to move backwards and forward, how to kind of organize itself and position itself the way I want it. So I really need to get the data from the gyroscope in order to start testing and maybe write some code so it will do manually like different positions, not manually but automatically without this thing. And then once I figure that out, this thing, the next step would be actually to get GPS and have the drone move in certain GPS locations. The way I designed it basically. And then after that, after this thing works, then I can start thinking about Raspberry Pi, connect Raspberry Pi and start gathering data as far as, because Raspberry Pi has a lens and it has the camera, so I can buy different, like a camera module and put different lens on it actually, including fisheye lens. I don't even know which lens would work in this situation properly, because it's gonna be underwater, so there's gonna be a lot of interference and mud and noise in front of me. Maybe I would have to put even more lights around the camera so it will light up whatever the camera will be shooting. Not sure how that's gonna work, so there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity in this project that I need to figure out. And then basically after that I'm ready. I'll be gathering data, and the data from Raspberry Pi and Arduino probably will be sent to the main, like to the mothership. When it's all done, it should be like in theory sending it to the mothership, but I'm not gonna be building mothership yet. I'll be the mothership for it, so I'll be receiving signals, including photos and whatnot. And then yeah, so there's a lot of work. I don't know how. The first thing I need to do is to print out a case, figure out how to put at least that, and then we'll see how it goes basically. So yeah, that's my plan. Maybe I should be putting gyroscope right away inside. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know yet how it's gonna work. I need to figure out how to put antenna the way that it doesn't